Hi, it's Steve with Coin Stuff I Like, bringing you a new series. This is part one, a new series on the peace dollar, and I will be covering both U.S. Mint issues as well as Moonlight Mint issues because Dan Carr and the Moonlight Mint complement in a fantasy fashion what the U.S. Mint produce in terms of peace dollars. So I'm excited to bring you this because for me, the peace dollar design elements are the prettiest of U.S. circulating silver dollars or silver dollars that circulated. Yes, Ikes are special to me because that was the first series I collected, and it's loaded with varieties and double dies, etc., errors. So it has special meaning to me on that basis. And yes, the Carson City silver dollars, the seeded and trade dollars and Morgans have a lot of meaning to me because of the history associated with it. But for me, this is the prettiest obverse reverse design of a circulating U.S. silver dollar. And so I'm excited to bring this to you. And this first part, I want to bring you a little bit of the background. So um, bear with me as I go through a few dates. I'm not an expert in World War I history, but I did want to bring you these dates because I'll come back to them periodically during the series uh, to give context. So the dates that I wanted to just sort of uh, you know, use for context is U.S. entered the World War One April 6th, 1917. And then the war, the first armistice was signed in November 11th, 1918. And of course, there's a number of prolongations of the armistice while they work out the details of a peace treaty. And there's a number of agreements that occur to extend the armistice, but ultimately the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919. Okay, so the armistice started November 11th, 1918, and it took a good 7 months to sign the come to a peace treaty and sign it June 28th, 1919. The peace treaty took effect on January 10th, 1920, which applied to most of the Allies, except for the U.S., because U.S. Congress did not ratify the Treaty of Versailles. So ultimately, the U.S. worked on a peace treaty specifically with Germany and signed the Treaty of Berlin on August 25th, 1921, which was when peace was official in the eyes of U.S. in signing a peace treaty with Germany. So there are some date backgrounds. Now, on the domestic scene, there's some dates that I want to go over as well. The first one is being the Pittman Act of April 23rd, 1918. Well, this act was enacted in part to assist Great Britain um, with silver and manipulating the silver price in Great Britain's favor back during the war. Um, so the Pittman Act was enacted and resulted in the melting of about 47% of the Morgan dollar mintage, historic Morgan dollar mintage. So a lot of silver dollars were minted, and that contributed to survival rates that we see here today. Along the ways, as the war was coming to a conclusion after the armistice, Frank Duffield is given credit as the first to bring up the concept of a coinage that specifically commemorates victory, a victory coinage, and this was in the November 1918 issue of the Numismatists. That started sort of a groundswell, and Farron Zerby, in an August 1920 address to the ANA, gave this paper to commemorate the peace with a coin for circulation. So this really got things rolling further, and got the concept of a new coin for commemorating the peace to be produced. Now, in the meantime, Morgan dollar resumed in Philadelphia on May 9th in 1921 because the Pittman Act not only called for the melting of all the historic coins during the war, but also provided for restoration of that coinage, and that started on May 9th, 1921. Now, at first, folks were thinking, oh, we're going to have to get a congressional act to approve a peace dollar, so to speak. But then they realized that the Morgan dollar had been around long enough that all it needed was a Treasury Secretary. It didn't need an act of Congress to create this peace dollar. So a commission was put together, and James Earl Fraser, working for the commission, and remember that name as he's the designer of the Buffalo nickel. He was sort of supervising the design competition. That's what they decided. So this was, the hour is getting late. November 19th, 1921, and they wanted it to produce a coin in 1921. So we're talking 11th hour type of stuff here, and so they actually invited a number of well-known names like Herman McNeil, that's the Standing Liberty Quarter, Victor D. Brenner, who's the Lincoln Cent, VDB Cent, Adolph Wyman, who's the Walking Liberty half dollar. They were all invited, along with Anthony D. Francisci. And George T. Morgan was the chief engraver of the mint. He wasn't really one of the competition participants, but the chief of the commission and the mint director wanted him to submit designs as well. So James Earl Fraser notified everybody, the participants, on November 19th, 1921, and said, oh, by the way, the submissions are due in about a month, December 12th, 1921. So during this 1 month period of time, they worked on designs, submitted designs, and on December 13th, Anthony D. Francisci, his designs were accepted. Now, his designs, we know, originally had this depiction of Lady Liberty with a diadem with rays, and a Roman numeral date. So this is pretty true to the original peace dollar designs by De Francisci. Just an aside, he used his wife Teresa, who's an immigrant from Naples, as the model for this. And why? Because he didn't have time to go hire a model, etc. He only had this short window of producing a design, so he used his wife as the designer. And by the way, she came in to New York, and as she immigrated, she saw the Statue of Liberty. She loved America, loved that Statue of Liberty, and in her youth, she always wanted to be the Statue of Liberty in any productions, etc. So there's celebrations and productions in school. She wanted to be Statue of Liberty, but she never was able to. So he actually gave her the a diadem with rays. It's not unlike the Statue of Liberty. At least that probably served as some inspiration in this obverse design that he originally submitted. The reverse design, he submitted two. One was an eagle on a rock with an olive branch, and the other reverse design was a little bit more dynamic, or fierce eagle with a broken sword. So the mint director said, okay, we're accepting these designs, but we want to lose the Roman numerals. We want Arabic numerals here. And let's take the second design where the first design where the eagle's on the rock, but let's take the sword, broken sword, out of the dynamic eagle's beak and have the eagle standing on it on this rock. So that was at the behest of the mint director, and then ultimately they showed President Harding, and President Harding saw a dimple in the original design, said remove the dimple. So the original obverse, after it was all through all the approvals, had Arabic numerals, lost the dimple, but otherwise looked very close to this original design. By the way, this is a Dan Carr Moonlight mint depiction of the original design. And then this broken sword eagle reverse was also accepted, and ultimately with the Treasury announcing the new design on December 19th. Again, 11th hour stuff, December 19th, 1921. So this was announced, and we know the broken sword reverse was part of the accepted announced design in December 19th, 1921, because of two bits of evidence. One is this over here on the right. This is a 7.5-inch bronze casting from the original plaster of the reverse. Now, the story goes is that they're showing these plasters to President Harding, and they're getting approval for them, and they say, you know what, we're traveling around with these things. We should get bronze castings of these. This is up in New York. We should get some bronze casting of these just to make sure that they're travel safe. Well, the bronze castings were done in New York, and there's actually written dialogue where they said, well, the reverse casting it was not a high quality casting. They said, we'll just send everything, and ultimately, what was returned to the mint in Philadelphia were the two plasters, the obverse and reverse, and the obverse bronze. We know that because Bill Fivaz, who's of the Cherry Pickers fame, along with J.T. Stanton, which is the FS, Fivaz Stanton numbers in the Cherry Pickers Guide. Bill Fivas visited behind the scenes at the mint and actually observed the obverse bronze, but there was no reverse bronze. Evidently, it never got sent back because maybe it was lesser quality. Fast forward to 2016, and Dan Carr notices this on eBay. So evidently, it was not returned to the Philadelphia Mint. It fell into private hands and came up on eBay in 2016. Dan Carr purchased it and became the model for his broken sword designs, which are the original DeFranceschi approved designs for the reverse with the broken sword, as you see here. The other piece of evidence, this is one that we know the broken sword design was original accepted design. We also know that back in the day, they were not allowed to put images of coins in print. So when they made this announcement, December 19th, 1921, with the press that followed, they had to describe the obverse and reverse. They couldn't put images. So the original press releases described the reverse as a large figure of an eagle perched on a broken sword and clutching an olive branch bearing the word peace. All right, so that was what's in the original print. So the press got this and the public got this, and they say, hey, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. Broken sword can mean defeat. It can symbolize defeat. So that we can't have that. So there's a lot of pushback on the broken sword in this design. So the mint got that message. And so on December 23rd, again, 11th hour, December 23rd, DeFranceschi and George T. Morgan, who's a chief engraver at the mint at the time, they got together on that date. And George T. Morgan painstakingly re-engraved, taking out the broken sword. And you can see that there's a little bit of additional twig in here as a remnant. And then as he took this element out here on the left-hand side, added some original rays. Look at the original design. Again, I'll go back here. 2 rays below 1, extending back to the rock, basically, right? And of course, Dan Carr captures that as faithful to that original design. But when Morgan took this out, he adds some additional rays to cover up that space or to fill that space that once was the broken sword. So it was not known for 85 years that this work was done. It was 85 years later that it was revealed that this work had been done by George T. Morgan on December 23rd, 1921, with the guidance or approval of DeFranceschi, who was present. So a press release was then released the next day, December 24th. Okay, the broken sword has been removed and will not be in the coins that are produced. So, on December 28th, 1921, the first peace dollars were struck in Philadelphia. And they looked like this. No broken sword. There was the olive branch, and there was the Arabic numerals, no dimple. Otherwise, the designs were very similar to DeFranceschi's original designs. So, following that, the peace dollar enjoyed production between 1921 and 1928. As you see here, This was the end of the Pittman Act. They sort of used up all the silver. The Pittman Act was over. No more need for production of the silver dollars according to the Pittman Act. But then through a separate legislation later on, the peace dollar production was resumed in 34 and 35. So we'll come back to this particular diagram periodically in the series. But what I have here, you can read the legend. The red are the years and mint marks that the U.S. Mint produced a peace dollar. The gold here are the Moonlight Mint years for production. There are in the 1921 dated was produced by both, with Dan Carr using the original design Roman numerals, and the official U.S. Mint had the Arabic numerals. And then it would come to 1964, which will be a whole nother video in this series, where the U.S. Mint famously struck 1964 dated peace dollars at the Denver Mint in 1965, but those were supposedly all melted, leaving the door open for Dan Carr to produce a 1964 fantasy piece. Dan also produced a proof in 1936. Yes, there are proofs in 1921 and 1922 by the U.S. Mint. Those are very, very, very rare. Like some at 5 to 8 known, and some unique, meaning only one known, whether it's high relief or low relief proof. So we'll cover that in another video as well. But we'll come back to this. But before we get into details of specific mintages and so forth, I want to go over the designs, starting with the reverse design. All right, so the reverse design, as we know, the original design, which is never went into production, is the broken sword reverse, which is high relief, and it has a broken sword. It has the 2 rays under 1. This is faithful to the original design that was originally approved. And Moonlight Mint has produced 6 issues with the broken sword reverse. Then, as we talked about already, the broken sword was removed, and the official U.S. Mint production in 1921, and some of the proofs that were dated 1922 had high relief, and had this design with the 4 rays under. Now, Moonlight Mint, all the peace dollars that Dan Carr has produced are if they don't have the broken sword, they're this high relief design. And actually, I have an asterisk because Dan Carr's reverse high relief is a higher relief than the quote unquote high relief of the U.S. Mint. I'll come to that in just a second. So we know that original with a broken sword, and that was removed, allowing the production, U.S. Mint production of this high relief design, 4 rays under 1. All right. So a little bit more on the relief in just a second, but the 1921s were found to not stack well because of the high relief, and also is creating problems with production. They striking them up, they're having problems, particularly in as they kept those high relief dies and started producing in 1922. They found this, no, this is not working. So they actually had about 35,000. They melted those that they had produced and went to a redesign, a low relief design. You can see now what they've done is sort of redesigned the rays, redesigned some of the elements of the olive branch, and so there's only 3 rays under the one for these remainder of the U.S. Mint low relief. Dan Carr doesn't have any low relief reverses, only the high relief reverse or the broken sword reverse. Then we come to the resurrection of the peace dollar with the 100th anniversary of the first peace dollar in 2021. And the U.S. Mint produced this reverse, which is very similar to the low relief reverse, except that it is quote unquote high relief. It's not necessarily the same high relief as the original, nor the high relief of Dan Carr's pieces. It is a high relief that meets the specifications of U.S. modern commemorative dollars. So it's a different high relief, but it's still a high relief than this low relief used in the 22 to 35 production, but similar design elements in terms of the rays. Now, more on the relief. The Dan Carr's 7.5 inch bronze, which is likely original. If you reduce that from 7.5 inches to a 5-to-1 reduction, it's a 31 thousandths of an inch relief. Relief being the height from the field to the highest device, or if you're looking at a die from the surface of the die to the deepest portion of the device. So the original obverse actually went into production was 31 thousandths. So that's pretty interesting that those match up. However, the high relief that went into production after removal of the broken sword already had some reduction in the relief. So the high relief in 1921 had 31 thousandths of an inch relief on the obverse, 15 1,000ths of an inch on the reverse. And when they went to low relief, you can see they reduced the relief on the obverse quite a bit, almost by 50%, and a little bit on the reverse as well. Nevertheless, this low relief was still just a tad higher than the relief seen in the Morgan dollar production from 79 to 1904. All right, so there's a little bit more about the relief on these coins, and so this is how you have it. And you can look at, again, you can get a naked eye generalization that, okay, this is high relief. It has the original 2 rays. This is high relief. It has 4 rays. This is low relief. It has 3 rays, except for the modern ones, which are 3 rays, but it's a quote-unquote high relief to modern commemorative coin specifications. One exception. In 1935, there was some mischief at the San Francisco Mint where they added a 4th ray, an extra ray. And this is actually VAMs 3, 4, and 6 of the 1935 S peace dollars have 4 rays. I only found this out because I was looking at my own coins and getting prepped for this video. And I said, wait a minute, this 35S has 4 rays. So I discovered that my 35S is a VAM 3B, and I'll show you that later on when we get to VAMs and the 35S. But so basically, you can look at your reverse and tell that it's low relief if it's 22 through 35, with the exception of this 1935S, the 3 dyes that produce these extra rays. Thank you, San Francisco Mint, for that confusion. So that aside, let's get to the obverse of designs. And we already talked about this. The original design submitted by DeFranceschi had Roman numerals and appeared very much like this. The Roman numerals were lost in exchange for the Arabic design, Arabic numerals, and that was approved by President Harding and the Mint and the Commission. So the original design submitted design looked like this, but the original production looked more like this, what came out in 1921. Now, Dankar only produced one with Roman numerals, and that is the 1921 Broken Sword issue from the Moonlight Mint. And this has high relief with the 31 thousandths of an inch obverse and reverse relief. This one here was what actually went into production. Now, if you look here, the one naked eye way of telling high relief from low relief is looking at this ray that comes up to the crossbar of the E. High relief is typically the design, that ray ends at the crossbar of the E. All right? So the U.S. Mint in 1921, all Moonlight Mint productions have this obverse design, different reliefs, because the Moonlight Mints are 31 thousandths of an inch. This was 31 thousandths of an inch, but different reverse. But the ray only comes to the E. When they went to low relief and they redesigned the obverse with lower relief, the ray that comes up next to the E extends above that lower crossbar of the E. All right? So that's an easy way of distinguishing the two. In fact, if you have a 1922 and you go, oh, well, I might have one of these 1922 proofs or 1922 high reliefs that got out from the mint, and they're going to be 6-figure coins, you can easily know that you're dealing with low relief, not a high relief 1922 by virtue of this extension. The U.S. Mint for the modern, the resurrection in 2021, adopted this high relief design here. Again, the high relief is different than this high relief because this is the high relief that is to specifications for modern commemorative coinage. So there you have it, and again, just I'll bring this back in to show you that the high relief that went into production was 31 thousandths of an inch, but then when they lowered the relief and they changed this particular ray among other elements, they lowered the relief to 16 thousandths of an inch in relief. All right. So there are the obverse designs. The only other thing that I'll bring up in this space of time between 22 and 35, they pretty much ran with this low relief design. But in 2026, they re-engraved and boldened up God in the motto. So if you look at a 1925 peace dollar, things are sort of, they're not standing out, even though the strike will have a bearing on that, but just the design, it's a little bit lower. And they said, well, we're going to bring that up. And look how this is almost fading into the field here, and they brought it up. So you look at your 1926, you'll usually see that God pops out. They didn't work on in or we or trust. God was the only word in the motto that they worked on in 1926. And so if you look at them, you can see that difference actually. And that's across all the different mints that produced 1926 peace dollars. So there you have it. And there's the obverses and reverses. We're going to get into specifics of these broken swords from Dan Carr, the specifics of all of these productions from the U.S. Mint, both historic as well as the modern. It's going to be fun for me because I have not searched my peace dollars for VAMs. And so in doing this video, I'm going to start checking every one to see what VAM it might be if I can determine the VAM. I've already given you one. I've already revealed that the 1935 S is a VAM 3B, but it's going to be fun for me going through all of these and looking for the VAMs, as well as bringing you the rest of the series. So thank you for watching this one. Stay tuned for the future parts of this series. Remember, buy stuff you like, but be smart about what you buy. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.